Welcome to Roots and Branches of Lehi, the podcast where we get to know the faces, stories, and lives that make up our community. I'm Ryan Harding, and I started this podcast as a way for us all to connect with the people we live alongside. Growing up in a small town, I learned that connections go beyond blood. They're built through shared experiences, friendships, and the moments we celebrate together. Each week, we'll sit down with someone new from Lehi to share their unique story, their passions, and what they love most about living here. So whether you've been here for years or just arrived, join us as we deepen our roots and reach out to our branches one story at a time. Welcome, Lee Anderson, to Roots and Branches of Lehi, where we get to know the people of Lehi. And you're one of the people of Lehi. So I appreciate you coming on. Give me a little background of yourself. So are you originally from Lehi? Are you a transplant in? Give me that background here.
I was one of the last people to be born in the Lehi Hospital.
Okay.
And grew up here pretty much my whole life. We had 11 years we lived in Kearns because Micron moved in as we were trying to buy a house and took everything out of our price range. So
Gotcha. Sure. Yeah, everything started going up and stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
We couldn't wait to get back.
Okay, good. And so this is so your childhood was all spent here in Lehi then
Yes,
and stuff.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell me what life was like back in that day and stuff like that. As far as what are some memories that you have of Lehi growing up?
There's about 6,000 people when I was born here in Lehi. I can't remember, there's 5 or 6 wards.
Okay.
Just all farmland.
Yeah.
It's just peaceful.
Yeah.
Nice life.
Yeah.
I went to the Lehi Elementary School. And,
Okay.
And just nice,
Yeah.
simple
Sure.
farmland.
Yeah. What did your dad do for work? Was he a farmer then, or what?
No, he worked for the Lehi Block plant.
Lehi Block. Okay.
Yeah, he drove truck.
Okay, drove truck and stuff.
Delivered, yep.
Okay. And did that most of his life then, or
Did that his whole life.
Whole
pretty
life.
much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He started long before I was born and
Sure.
until he died. So
Yeah.
until he was retired.
Retired. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have siblings and stuff like that then too?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
how big was your family that you grew up in?
There's 10 kids in my family. Then
Okay.
my mom died and my dad remarried and I
Okay.
have a stepsister. So there's 11 of us.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So large family.
Big
then.
family.
Okay. Still staying together to this day? You guys can?
Yeah. My oldest sister died, but my youngest brother
Yeah.
lives in Idaho. Everybody else lives here in Utah.
Okay. Wow. That's nice. Not everybody gets that. A lot of times
No.
people scatter,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so your family actually stayed here. So that's nice. That's
Yep.
good. Okay. Tell me then, so obviously growing up here in Lehi and stuff like that, what did you end up studying and kind of going into and stuff?
But really, just basic, just the requirements to graduate. I didn't really.
Sorry, what did you go into for work?
For work.
Yeah,
Okay.
for work and stuff.
I
Yeah.
went on a mission to Alberta, and when I got home, my brother had a job signed up
Yeah.
for doing sprinkler pipe, fire
Okay.
sprinklers.
Yeah.
So I did that for 12 years. And,
Okay.
And then I went into design, and I've been designing ever since.
Okay. So so designing landscaping stuff or?
No, fire sprinklers.
Fire sprinklers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yep.
you've been doing that ever since then?
Yep.
Okay.
Since 85.
Okay. What got you interested in that? Why that as opposed to the more manual labor part?
I started installing in 85, broke my back in 90.
Okay.
Installed for another, until 95.
Yeah.
Or I think it was 90. It was 97.
Okay.
And then I went into design. The doctor
Okay.
said I either had to get an operation or get a new occupation. So
Okay.
I
So-
chose the occupation.
So it was more forced change then. So you would have
Pretty
stayed
much.
where you were then?
Probably.
Yeah.
I wanted to get in design, but.
Okay. But that accelerated it.
Exactly.
That made it happen a little sooner. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense. So tell me, somebody that's not familiar with that line of work, what goes into that? What software are you using? What do you do for
It's
that?
mainly AutoCAD, and then it's called HydroCAD. It's just a add-on.
Okay.
But that's what I typically use, and then there's lots and lots of codes you gotta know and work with. And
Sure.
Every job's different.
Yeah. And is this mainly for commercial buildings then?
Commercial, residential. all
Okay.
of
You
it.
do residential too. It's okay.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of churches right now.
Churches. Okay. Sure. Yeah.
And
Okay.
schools and things like that.
Okay. And enjoy it?
Yeah.
It's been good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been good for me and my family.
Yeah, good, good. I love it. It's funny. There's lots of different jobs out there,
Yes,
right?
there are.
It's amazing. In school, we all think of the doctor, lawyer, teacher, whatever, right? But you get out and there's, oh, hey, no, there's this job. I didn't know the sprinklers, and not even just sprinklers, but the designing then of the sprinklers. So it makes sense. Somebody has to do that, right? It's not fun, but
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about one of the things you do is you have a lot of, so obviously you're from Lehi, and so you have a lot of posts and different things like that of stories of Lehi too and stuff, right? Give me some examples of that, and maybe before you give me the examples, what got you into doing that?
Writing. I've never had the desire to be a writer. That was never a thing in high school. I barely graduated English. It wasn't my strong suit.
Sure, yeah, hey, mine either, for the record, but yeah.
But I had a desire to know where I came from.
Yeah.
All the new decisions from all these different ancestors.
Yeah.
All accumulated to have me born in Lehi, and
Yeah.
I wanted to know how that came to be. So I started
Sure.
researching and writing that up, and
Yeah. Okay.
became interested.
So really a family history kind of thing. You know,
Right.
that bug got sparked in you and stuff. And so then tell me, so then do you post these online and stuff like that, these stories? And give me some examples of what you,
I'm one of the admins for the Lehi Historical Society Facebook page.
Okay.
And I kind of got started with that. John Hawes got me into the Lehi Historical Society. I came to him because I wanted to get some information about my family from the Free Press.
Yeah.
And he just says, why don't you come in and go to a meeting? And I found myself, I was on the board all of a sudden. And so I've been a member ever since. And,
Sure, yeah.
But he was in charge of the Facebook page. And then when his health got where he wasn't able to do that anymore, I kind of took over the posting and things. And looking through the papers, I'd find all these information from other people in Lehi and stuff. And I decided, why not bring all these forgotten stories to light?
Yeah. So so is that where you find them in the Historical Society, or where do these stories come from then? That you find?
Most of them come from the newspapers.
Okay.
Yeah, there's online newspapers that I just go through and find really interesting stories from people in Lehi and even other places. I put them on their FamilySearch page, so the family members have access to them.
Gotcha. So you're tagging that individual in FamilySearch and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, whether they're from Lehi or not.
Sure. Yeah. Love that. I love that. So sometimes people get a random story and they're like, hey, where did this come from? And it was from you then. Because these aren't even people you're related to then, I guess. No. It's just, hey, I found this story. Let me find this person online. Oh, I love that. Okay.
Probably 99% I'm not related to.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. We only have so many siblings and cousins and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing that for?
I started in 2015 in the Lehi Historical Society. And then I probably... I can't remember. I think John died right shortly thereafterwards, probably in 2016 or so, and I've been doing it ever since.
Okay. So, and is this, would this be called a job, or is this more of a volunteer kind of thing?
It's strictly volunteer.
Strictly volunteer.
Nobody asked me to do it. I just
wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just enjoy it.
And so, do you technically then, I say work, but technically aligned with the Lehi Historical Society?
Yeah, I'm on the board.
So the board. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You just said that. Yeah. Okay. So it is but it's again volunteer position. You're just doing it. It's just something you just wanted to do. Okay. Yeah. So you've been doing it for 11 years now, almost 12 years, right, if you started that. So any stories stand out to you? Any things that you're like, oh, I love that story or that story? Any kind of...
One of my favorites was probably one of my first ones, which was, there was a guy named Nels Otterson back in early 1900s, 1905 or somewhere in that area, 5 or 08, who the story was always been he was a drunk cowboy that was trying to run down Henry East, on his horse, and Henry East shot him out of the saddle.
Oh.
And they took him to get him healed up, and they stuck a handkerchief through his stomach and pulled it out the other side, and he ended up surviving. And that's what the story's always been. That's what it is in the history book.
Yeah.
I started researching that a little bit, and I found out that people that knew Nels, it didn't really match up with evidence.
Sure.
And so I looked through the newspapers from back in that era.
Yeah.
And I found that most of the story was true. Yeah. But there was some things that was a little different. He was a drunk cowboy. Okay. He was running up and down the road trying to run people over. Yeah. Henry East did shoot him. Yeah. Okay. But he was trying to take him to jail when he broke away and started running away. And
that's when he shot him.
When he shot him.
Okay.
And I wrote that up, posted it, and it got put in the newspaper. And then one of Nels Otterson's grandsons, I think it was, he was his son. He came into the Historical Society and says, "This is the story we've been saying all this time, but where did this come from?" And when that really made me happy to see the story put more accurate than it was. Yeah. The original story, it was Richard Van Wagner that wrote it. He got the information from Lehi pioneers, old-timers. Yeah. And I started researching them, and they were in their probably 80s or 90s when they told the story. Mm-hmm. They were only 10 when it happened, and it happened at midnight on Main Street, and so they more than likely didn't see it. They just was getting it third hand.
People were asleep. Yeah.
And he went with what he had. But nowadays we have access to old newspapers, archives, and things like that. So I was able to find numerous newspapers and get a more accurate story.
Yeah. Well, I love that.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Again, just to shed light on a story, right? To add a little bit more to it.
In reality, history belongs to whoever writes it down.
Sure.
So whether it's accurate or not, whoever writes it down, that becomes the history.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. That makes sense. What other stories? Give me some more story time with you here, Lee. But
there's a lot. One of my favorite things is to find a story that I'd never heard of before, post it, and have family members saying, I never knew that about my grandpa.
Yeah.
There was stories about 3 men getting buried in the clay pits.
Okay. Tons
of clay falls on them, and they were able to dig them up with no broken bones or anything like that. Wow. One of them he was unconscious and barely breathing and stuff, but they were able to revive him and get him to the hospital, and that was an amazing story.
Yeah.
It was just been totally forgotten.
Yeah.
There's countless.
Sure, I believe you. Yeah, no, I believe you. And why do you like stories so much? Why do you think they appeal to you?
Always enjoyed stories. Listen to the General Conference. My favorite general authorities was Paul H. Dunn and Thomas Monson, because they always taught through stories.
Yeah, they did.
And I could relate to those stories. My grandpa grew up. He had an interesting life. I didn't know it at the time, but it was because he grew up through the Depression.
Yeah.
And so he had to get different jobs and things like that to try to feed his family.
Sure.
I just thought he was a really interesting guy. He was able to do all these different jobs and things. But he'd always tell me stories, and they always had a kind of a moral or a point at the end.
Yeah.
And I just kind of gravitated towards that. And so I'd read people's histories, and they're all just, I was this, I was a bishop, I did this, and boring.
Yeah, no, hey, a list of accomplishments doesn't...
You don't get to know somebody just by listening to their accomplishments. You get, if you tell me, I did this as a kid, or I did that as a kid, and what was it like when you grew up, and those type of things. That's, to me, is what really...
Well, to your point, you get to actually get to know that person, as opposed to some of the same guy that was a bishop. Were you a good bishop? What story? Because we all have known bishops that were good and maybe not as good. I'm not going to say any of them were bad, but just the level of care, right? Did they pour themselves into that calling or not, right? So those stories help, right? Hey, give me some examples. That's why you brought up Thomas Monson. Obviously, I think of 3 stories just come to my mind about him, of missing promptings or different things like that. And so that tells you this is a guy that's very much cares about the individual, about the one, and doing things. And so to your point, stories actually, that's how I know what type of person he is, not necessarily from a list of accomplishments that he did, right?
And that's kind of what I've tried to do. When I was on my mission, a member gave me this little book. It was called Memories I Could Do Without and Other Tales from the Barnyard.
Okay,
or something like that.
Yeah.
And I started reading them. It was just these stories of this cowboy that growing up on the ranch and stuff like that, and they were hilarious.
Sure.
And I started thinking, I could write some stories like this.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, and then I interviewed my siblings, and every time we would have a party, family get-together or something after my parents had died or even when they were still alive, I'd always kind of gravitate towards just telling some stories, and I'd get my recorder out, and then I ended up getting all those and compiling all into a book.
Oh, really?
So now they're not just our stories. Now our grandkids have them, and our kids and things like that. And so now they're part of history.
Yeah, I love that.
Family history.
Yeah. And so you've recorded those, so you have the audio and the written form of those. Is what you okay.
Yeah.
And so I think stories are very important. How have you found, so you mentioned grandkids and kids and stuff like that. Why do you think those appeal to them, or what ways do you think you can help with advice to other people as far as getting some of that knowledge, that these stories and stuff like that, down to those children? Have you found any things that you've had success with in that?
Yeah, my mom died when I was 10.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know her that much.
Sure.
And so everything I know about her is from my siblings, my older siblings, or her siblings. And so if you can talk to your parents before they're dead,
ideally, right? Yeah.
or grandparents, then that would be the best thing to do.
Sure.
If they're not around, my dad, he got where he wasn't able to remember much. I'd ask him, I don't know about this, I don't know about that.
Sure.
And so I got his brother and sister around, and I started talking to them. Tell me about your childhood and stuff, and I recorded that. And I was able to find a lot about my dad, but now all of a sudden their childhood's recorded also.
Yeah.
And so just things like that. It's really interesting to get to know, just interview somebody and talk to them.
Sure. So just take the time, bring a tape recorder or a phone. We can do a video of it too, right?
Exactly,
I mean, just something that captures that moment. I would agree with that. In fact, part of the reason I started this podcast is I found some old videos of my dad interviewing his grandparents, which would be my great, and they were telling some of these stories that I've heard before, but it was really fun to hear grandma tell the story that I've heard, right? So from her own lips, I have this video of her telling the story that I've heard for a long time. It's family lore of her saving my dad and his brothers from a gas fire that would have happened, stuff like that. Anyhow, but pretty cool story. It was fun to hear it from her. And so I just a kind of a second witness to what you're saying. I think taking the time to do those stories is very important.
And if they're gone, then there's other ways you can get information about. I've got a lot of pioneer ancestors, and so I was able to start researching them, and very few of them wrote anything down.
Sure.
Thankfully, some of their ancestors or their descendants wrote things down about them. So I was able to glean some of that from stories that they wrote. I was able to get on, there's several websites about members of the church that came across the ocean.
Okay.
And so I was able to get some compilations of those voyages that they were on to fill in some of the gaps. And then there's coming across the plains, fill in some of the gaps there that other people had written. Looked up some of their brothers and sisters that wrote histories.
Okay.
So I was able to get some there. And through all that, I was able to compile a fairly decent history for them.
Yeah.
And just things like that. There's a lot of different ways you can do things.
And if somebody's looking at doing this, sometimes you mentioned you put together a book and stuff like that. Sometimes that might feel a little daunting. What have you found as some of the best ways? Because I think sometimes people don't know where to start on those things. Well, do we start here? Do we start there? I don't know. What advice would you give to somebody that's, I don't know, how do I start on some of these things?
Histories are important, but I've found 99% of the time somebody won't read a history, but they will read a story.
Sure.
So if you can take a history and break it up into stories, then they're more apt to be read and shared.
Okay.
I can't put a history on Facebook.
Sure.
But I can put a story.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And things like that.
And have you found, so you brought up social media and stuff like that, have you found social media to be a good place to put some of those things and stuff like that?
It is. Yeah, it's good for sharing things and getting information out there, but a lot of people now are trying to get away from social media, which I don't blame them. I wouldn't do the same thing if I wasn't doing this historical society.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's some good in there too.
Yeah. But I guess that's what you're trying to do, because the reason some people are probably getting off social media is because they're I can only watch so many cat videos, or exactly. you go down rabbit holes that are maybe not always good.
Exactly.
Some devices or different things that are not good. But I think you putting good content on there, obviously, that the algorithm can pull up those kind of things if those people are interested in those, right?
My whole goal with this historical society is to bring memories back to the Lehi citizens.
Sure.
Or even if you're not from Lehi, you can relate, because a lot of people had the same type of childhood no matter where they grew up.
Sure.
But also get them closer to their ancestors. I love it when somebody says, I didn't know that about my grandpa, or get excited, or be able to share additional information.
Yeah.
I told a story about a guy who, his daughter had started a fire, and he had started a shed on fire, and there was dynamite in the shed because he was doing construction and stuff.
Sure.
And anyway, it blew up the dynamite and shattered windows and all this stuff around.
Yeah.
The daughter's daughter, I think it was, or something like that, anyway, relation, she says, oh yeah, my mom told me about that. She was playing war when she started this fire.
Yeah, naturally.
It just adds a little more information. It's funny, you're playing war and then ended up little getting out of hand, a little more than you thought.
And that is war, right? It gets out of hand a little bit sometimes. So maybe a little more than we want sometimes. You want to just do this, but it ends up being bigger. That's good. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Anything else you can talk to as far as trying to get people more into this family history and stories and stuff like that? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought about it a little bit. I know there's an old proverb that says, when an old man dies, the library burns to the ground. And which is true, because most people live their whole life. They have all these experiences, trying to figure out things and go through hardships and overcome and all that stuff, learn all this stuff and take it with them when they die.
Yeah.
Maybe their kids might pick up some of that stuff, and maybe their grandkids might pick up some of that stuff, but after 2 generations, they're largely forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think that's sad.
Yeah.
If you can get all this information, I wish I knew more about my grandparents. I wish I knew more about my great-grandparents.
Yep.
They went through the World War I, World War II, all these things.
Yeah.
We're going through some hardships now. It sure would be awesome to be able to hear how they overcame some of their trials.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's a lot of times That's why I love reading biographies of people, because I like to see, even though most of the people I read biographies of are far more famous and far more important than I'll ever be,
Same here. Yeah.
But it's still fun for me to read those because they still had trials, even if it was, again, different levels of trials than I've had, but like, how did they handle this, right? You mentioned war or something like that. How did they handle, we all went through COVID, like how did they handle COVID, right? It'd just be nice to have some of these things so that we can then, again, how did they do it? Oh, okay. And first of all, it brings a kinship to them, right? Yes. So you're more connected to those family. Yep. But I think it also gives you practical advice of, that's why we read the scriptures. We're getting ideas from people, right? Hey, how did you handle this experience, right? Yeah. And if you really boil down the scripture, a lot of times scriptures are just stories, right?
They are, yeah. It's just history.
It's just they're stories with God in them, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why they're a little more important. But I think that's important for people to know and understand.
I know my daughter is struggling with some health issues. It's been great to share some of my mom's health trials through, with her.
Sure.
And seeing how the strength my mom had.
Yeah.
Well, she's got her DNA in her, so she's got that same strength.
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes you don't know you have the strength.
Yeah.
Until you're in that situation. But
yeah.
If you can see, if Grandma did that, went through it,
yes,
I can do it too.
Grandma's only 2 generations back, right? And so
exactly.
No, I think you hit on something that's, because we all like, there's a lot of stories out there, and so whether it's country stories like George Washington and stuff, okay, hey, he's great, but I'm not related to George, you know what I mean, or other people. But so there is something that's unique about your own family history stories.
Exactly.
I mean, to your point, that's my DNA, right? I may have Grandma's eyes. Do you know what I mean? I may have Grandma's whatever, her personality that could handle the same thing. It's just, it brings it down very to the granular personal level.
Yeah.
I think.
I wrote another book. After I finished one with my siblings, I started thinking, well, there's all these stories about my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents. And so I started compiling all those stories. Yeah. And there's a few stories of me and my siblings that didn't make the first book that I was able to throw in the second book. Sure. But it's all about, most of it is about just passing on some of the trials they went through and how they overcame them trials. Yeah. And it's not all that. There's a lot of fun stories in there. Of course. And just interesting stories. But it's interesting. David Evans is one of my ancestors, and he obviously went through quite a bit with Hans Mill and Zion's Camp and all these type of things. And that's some really interesting stories on how he was able to push through all those trials and conquer them. And gives me some courage and hope. Sure. That I could do the same. I agree. That makes sense to me. If I could get on a kind of a granular level here, let's say somebody is like, Lee's inspiring me. I should do this more on a practical thing. You mentioned writing a book, for example. What software? Did you use Microsoft Word? What software do you use for that? And then I'm going to ask you some other questions too with that. But I use Office Libre because it's free. Okay. I used to use Microsoft Word until I lost that computer, and I don't want to buy a new one. Okay, so you even used a free version of it. Okay, so what was it called again? Office Libre. Libre, okay. Yeah. Which is essentially Microsoft Word, but a free version? Is that, okay. Yeah, it has Excel, it has all the different programs, but it's free. But it's free, okay. So you just used that program, and you were able to just type it up. Yeah. Now, did you add pictures and stuff like that to this book? Okay, and you could add pictures in that? Not in Office Libre, but there are programs with that. There's Scribus is one. Okay. There's different programs that are free that you can do page or layout and things like that. So did you, again, on a granular level here, so did you write, so you wrote let's say it's a 50-page book or whatever, and then did you just put pictures, like first 3 pages are words, and then you put a bunch of pictures on a page? Is that kind of, or how did it look? Yeah, pretty much. Okay. I usually try to put at least 1 or 2 pictures per story. Okay. Some stories I didn't have pictures, so I had to draw some, but or find some on the freeware on the internet, some pictures and stuff. Sure, to illustrate whatever you're trying to illustrate. Sure, exactly. Okay. So then, so that's how you did the book. So again, on a granular level, what are you doing? So people say, hey, I recorded this video, I wrote down this story. What are you using? What's a good way for these to be shared? So obviously, you live in your home, and the kids are probably grown up, I assume, and not everybody's getting. How do you disseminate this information? How do you do the stories and stuff? One good way to do it is, if you want to just do stories, is get on FamilySearch. Okay. They have a lot of different things where you post a picture and then you can either record a little story about it, or you can add a story, make it into a story. Okay. And then there's a way to share that. Once it's on there, then it's obviously anybody that has access to FamilySearch has access to your story. but you can also share it to other platforms.
Okay. So FamilySearch is one. Okay. And that's a free, so whether they're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or not, that's one they can sign up for,
Exactly.
I think.
Right. And if you don't know what to write about, if you get in, there's ways you click on, I can't remember what it's called, but there's different
Kind of
levels in
interview
there.
questions or something like that? Or?
It basically says you come up with 52 stories, like one a week. Or it'll just ask you a question, and then you just answer the question and write about it. Or you can make your own topics and stuff. And it's basically just getting you to get something that's up here out.
Sure. Okay.
Which I think is important.
Yeah.
Then a lot of times if you post a picture, then you can tell about that picture. I can't tell you how many pictures the archives has.
Yeah.
We don't have no idea who the people are.
Yeah.
What the occasion was, anything. Well, they're just people.
Yeah.
And it's just sad that that's just lost, basically.
Sure.
I try to find, sometimes I'm able to find some people, but most of them I never will.
Sure.
They're just lost people.
Yeah. So FamilySearch is one of those places then. Is that the only place you use then? Or is there other, like, as far as sharing?
Ancestry.com is another good one.
Okay.
That one is, you pay unless you're a member of the church, then you have free access to it. But there's lots of different programs that are geared towards family history and writing stories and things like that.
Okay.
If you do some searches, you can find a whole bunch of them.
Okay. But you like posting those on those sites, and then, but then obviously that's not the only place, because you also show them on social media, I guess, and stuff like that too. Any other places you do as far as just disseminating that information, I guess?
Those are the main ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mainly because I put them on FamilySearch just so their family, anybody they're looking up their ancestry, they have that story.
Yeah.
If I have pictures the archives has or something like that, I'll try to throw them on there too, scan them and put them on there so that we don't want to just have locked in a closet just all this information. We want to get it out to people.
Sure.
And so everybody has access to it. That's what it's for.
That's what it's for. Sure. Okay. I love that. Again, I think a lot of times people don't know where to start or don't know what to do. And so it sounds just get out there, start recording those stories in whatever form that is. Have you started experimenting with AI in regards to stories and stuff like that? I'm curious.
I haven't really been introduced to AI much.
Okay.
I do a little bit, I guess, when I write like an email or something like that. It'll tell me a better way to
say something and
stuff, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. So then I'll speak to it just for a second, because what's been fun is taking transcripts. So, for example, I mentioned that video of my dad that he recorded. So I was able to put that on YouTube, and then I got the transcript from it, and then I took the transcript, threw that into AI, and had it kind of summarize the things and divide it up into chapters and stories and stuff like that.
That's a good idea.
So it was really nice because it was able to make it a little more, instead of just this 45-minute interview, and you're like, hey, this is a really good one, listen. But the reality is, if I'm being honest, we don't all have 45 minutes that we want to sit and watch an old lady talk. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I mentioned that story that she shared. Now it's because I was able to take it and do chapters. It's okay. If I just want to hear that story, okay, at 6 minutes and 37 seconds is that story, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And AI was able to help me do that because it's able to take all the information and say, hey, here's the table of contents essentially, right? And here's the main points. And you can take, in fact, this interview, we'll use AI and we'll use it and say, okay, hey, what did Lee say? What were some good quotes he said? And what were some main takeaways and stuff? And so it's just able to, in my opinion, make it a lot more usable because, again, you already have the content, you have the good stuff. What I think is one of the challenges is trying to get people to actually spend the time getting into it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so if I can say, hey, you don't have to listen to the whole interview, but what's interesting to you? Oh, I really want to hear this story. Okay, all right, click that. It's 5 minutes long.
Yeah,
as opposed to a 45
awesome.
minute video.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
So there's the tip for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that.
I've just found it's very, because I'm very passionate about stories and family history myself. And what I always trying to think about is how do we get people to care? Because you're interested, I'm interested. Okay, great. But we want everyone interested, I think.
Yeah.
And I get to not the same degree that maybe you or I are. But how do we do that? And I think that's what I'm trying to always think of ways to like bring it down to the masses. How do we help people actually get something out of it? Because I think everything you were saying, the principles of, I love your story with your daughter and your mom. I think that's a great example of why stories and getting to know ancestors is so important, right? I think there's a strength that comes from that.
Oh, there's totally a strength, yeah. That's the name of my second book is Drawing Strength from Your Roots. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Do you want to talk about that book a little bit? Tell me what's in it or what made you write that?
It was after I wrote the first book with my siblings. Then it was just, there's just some awesome stories about our ancestors. My grandma coming from Switzerland in 1905, I think it was, or something like that. Anyway, she came and got in a train wreck in Colorado.
Okay.
And train derailed and stuff, and they spent some time waiting for the next train to come, and they got injured, and she was only 3 at the time.
Sure.
Didn't speak any English because they just spoke French, and it's a cool story. And thankfully, my great-grandma had written down, her mom had written down some stuff.
Okay.
So I had her version, but then I was able to go to the newspapers and get more information about that accident. Okay. And I was actually able to go and get on Google Earth and find where that happened.
Okay.
And I was able to get on Google Earth and find their home in Switzerland. It's still there.
Okay.
And just things like that. It's interesting to know where the story happened too, instead of just
people want
that story happened.
Well, especially you brought up all those technologies, right? Yeah, somebody could do the street view in that place and actually check out the town or something like that, right? And to be able to see that a little bit better.
Yeah, they had a picture they took from some railroad tracks, and it had their home there, and I was able to. Here's their town, here's the tracks, and so I was able to kind of look along the tracks and stuff, and all of a sudden, holy cow, there's their house.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's super cool. And so have you taken screenshots of this, and that's what's in your book then, kind of thing?
No, this was after the book.
Oh, this is after the book.
Yeah, but I did make a Google Earth story, basically, of that whole journey of them leaving there and coming here, and I was able to put pictures and stories and stuff, so it tells the story of their immigration, and it was really... I think it turned out pretty good.
I love that. But you mentioned, obviously, so it sounds like in your family, you're kind of that guy that, does keep track of these things, right? Have you gotten feedback from siblings, from children, from cousins? Have you gotten feedback on some of these?
Yeah. Siblings, it's interesting.
Sure.
Their kids are the ones that tend to really like it.
Okay.
And then the grandkids are, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's, a lot of times if you live the history, it's not as big a deal.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I was going to ask that. Why do you think that is? But maybe that is the answer. This is just, and maybe that's it, because it's their lived story. And so they're like, this is just, I already know this. This is my life. Right?
Yeah.
But
I think so.
But obviously those other ones are craving to know those older people, especially ones that have died, right?
I think it's important. That's one of the things my mom, one of the last things she said before she died was she was afraid she was going to be forgotten. My youngest brother was 6 months old when she died.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, there's 10 kids.
Sure. So he never knew her.
He never knew her.
Yeah.
And so me and my siblings have made it a kind of our lifelong goal is to not let her be forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think my kids and my grandkids, or the grandkids of my siblings, know my mom better than I did when I was growing up.
Sure.
Because of all the stories that we've been told and things like that. We've really tried to keep her alive.
Yeah.
And I think it's paid off.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's very important for all of us to do, right? And whether that's writing a formal book or just sharing verbal stories so that we don't forget those that obviously had an impact on our lives. Right. No, I love that. Anything else? Where do you think the future's going with family history stuff and stories and different things? I don't know the exact question I'm trying to ask, but what do you think the future is with some of those things?
I think it's improving. I think it's getting more. I find when I'm doing family's history, some people think I'm wasting my time because I should be doing temple work.
Sure.
I'm doing temple work too.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think that it's just as important, if not more, drawing the hearts of the children to the fathers and the fathers to the children. That's through temple work. But if you're just seeing a name and a date, your heart's not drawn to that person. If you know that person's history, a little bit about that person, now it becomes real to you more. Family stories, family history does that. The dash between the birth and death, that's where all the information is, all the good stuff, if you ask me. No, I agree. And that's where all the strength comes from too, as far as the world's hard. Everybody has problems. You mentioned health challenges. People have emotional challenges, physical, spiritual, financial, whatever, right? And I think there is a strength that comes from knowing who you are and knowing where you came from and knowing who did what. And sometimes they're bad stories too. Maybe it's, hey, one was a drunk cowboy running through the streets kind of thing. And it's not a great story or not a great light of the person, but was there things to learn from that? Hopefully, yes, right? And I have experienced that I've come across some stories that I don't want to write.
Sure.
I don't want to write about people's problems they had when they were younger, that they've overcome and stuff like that.
Sure.
That's nobody's business. It's better left to the past.
Sure.
But there are other things that needs to be told.
Yeah.
And I try to average that out and do the best I can to tell the good stuff and And it's even stuff that's hard to hear.
Sure. And what criteria do you use on that? Because that's a good question. Some stories maybe, there's a line there, right? Because on the one hand, we can learn from lots of things, but yeah, you also don't want to, I think of Joseph Smith and the 116 pages, exactly make Joseph Smith look like a smart guy, right? A good guy. But yet, man, that was a good story,
and that's
right?
a very important story.
It's a very important story. How do you gauge which stories to share and which are better left
Just a couple of examples. I come across a newspaper article about two boys. They were 18 and 19 years old that got drunk and attacked a girl, and they were trying to take advantage of her. Sure. Thankfully, they were stopped.
Yeah.
They spent some time. I found him on FamilySearch, at least one of them, and he was a well-respected member of the community and things like that. And obviously, he'd put that behind him.
Sure.
I'm not going to bring that up.
Sure. Yeah, I like that.
There's another one story where a guy that had struggled with alcohol abuse. When he would drink alcohol, he made some bad choices and things like that. And there were several stories about him. I did tell that story.
Sure.
And his grandson says, "Hey, that's pretty hard to read."
Sure.
I messaged him and it says, everything I've read about him as a person, great guy. Loved his family. He was a good father. Yeah. Everything. But when he drank, it basically overcame him, and he struggled with that, and he made poor choices and things like that. Yeah. And I don't know. I think that's an important story to tell because everybody struggles. Yeah. I had ancestors that struggled with alcoholism, and thankfully they were able to overcome it. But it wasn't until way later in life, and then their families suffered because of it too. Yeah. That's a story that needs to be told. Yeah. I think.
Yeah. No, I like that. And again, it's a balance. I think of Alma the Younger. We don't know. He was just the vilest of sinners. We don't really know what that was, right?
Exactly.
And so obviously, I think Mormons, we're going to keep some of those out. Yeah, maybe that's some of those stories, right? We don't need to know those. But then again, other stories there are in there, and we do hear about and stuff. Yeah. So I don't know.
I think you need to know about the trials. I think you need to know about overcoming those trials.
Sure.
Sometimes you don't really know what the trial was.
Yeah.
That you struggled, they know that there was a struggle there and things.
Sure.
That's the important part, is the overcoming.
Yeah, because then that makes it easier to apply it to ourselves, right? Because maybe, I don't have alcohol doesn't work with me, but I have a problem with something else, right? Okay, yeah, so if we get caught up in the details, I think sometimes that can ruin the message, right?
And I have no desire at all to taint somebody's ancestor.
Correct.
Everybody changes. I think it was Muhammad Ali that says that if you think the same today that you did 30 years ago, you wasted 30 years of your life.
Sure.
I agree with that because that's me. 30 years ago, I looked at life totally different than I do now.
Sure.
And hopefully 30 years from now, I'll look at life totally different than I do now.
Sure. That means life's working for you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're changing, you're becoming smarter and more compassionate, more loving, all those different things, right?
Exactly.
I love that. I think you're teaching us why stories, family stories especially, are important. And also community stories, right? Sometimes you mentioned, it sounds like you come from good stock, right? Good people and stuff like that. I'm guessing there's some here in Lehi and that maybe don't come from what they would feel are good stock. And
I think everybody has a story to tell. Everybody does.
Yeah.
Whether it's a story of overcoming or the story of putting things behind you. If you don't come from good stock, become the good stock.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
I think everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah.
I think what the problem is most people don't think they have a good story. They just, have you ever heard of the story trek?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at life too. Everybody has a story. Whether one of my grandpas, he was crippled before I was born, about 10 years before I was born, and so he was basically bedridden in a wheelchair. He never really left his home most of the time. And so most people don't know who he is. He didn't really make an impact on society or anything like that. But he sure made an impact on me. And his stories need to be told because of that.
Yeah.
And I think just because you aren't some bigwig in society or whatever, that doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in reading about the peasant that's working in the fields and his day-to-day life and trials and things like that than I am the king.
Sure.
To me, that's more interesting.
Sure, because 99% of us are peasants, right?
And I can relate to it.
You can relate, yeah. Very few of us get to be king. So maybe king of the field. You're maybe the manager of the field, but not king, right?
Exactly. I wish I found it when you're reading histories there's more about the men than the women. Most women don't have histories written about them. Other than they were a good mother, a good wife, and that's pretty much it. That's good to know, but that doesn't really help. I sure would like to know a little bit more about what they went through in life and how life was. Life today is completely different than when I grew up. And when I grew up was completely different when my parents grew up. And completely when my grandparents. It's
the world is changing very quickly. Yes.
And it always has been. And that's something that what I really like about history is to see what life used to be. I'd really like that.
Not to get you too emotional again, but you mentioned your grandpa and his impact on you. What stood out? Why did he have an impact on you?
I think the main reason, when I was a kid, he took the time to listen to me and talk to me, and he's the one that was telling stories a lot. When I broke my back, he was on my mind a lot because he broke his back. Unfortunately, he was crippled. Thankfully, I wasn't.
Medical technology, maybe at the time.
It was just luck. Or a blessing, actually. What it was, because the doctor told me that the break I had was usually you're crippled or dead. Is the result. It was a pretty bad break, but thankfully it didn't damage the spinal cord, and so I was able to recover. But I don't know. I've always been drawn to his stories and his life. It's always made a really big impact on me. He was a great man. And he was a very humble man. He did his best to just learn and just constantly trying to learn stuff. He couldn't go out and experience things, and so he would try to do it through books and things like that. I've tried to do the same. A lot of people said that, oh, you know so much about Lehi. No. When you read a story that I write, it's usually an hour after I learned it.
Fair enough. You're just out there doing the work, right?
Exactly.
You're just learning the things. I like that. And I think to that point, that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, is get normal, quote unquote, people interviewed, talk to them, right? Because again, I think there's a lot of power that comes from the ordinary, right?
I agree.
Because again, most of us are ordinary, and not that we won't. Even ordinary people can do extraordinary things, and so I don't mean to diminish any of our. Obviously, what you're doing, I think, is actually probably way more impactful than you realize, right? But you would also call yourself a quote unquote ordinary, normal person, right?
Exactly.
But I think again, those people can do extraordinary things, great things, even if your life will largely be unnoticed by the world, right? Mine too. It's just just the way it is. But I think that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, is just get to know lots of people and tell their stories and get them written down and archived.
That's vital. I think that's extremely important to do that.
This has been great. You mentioned stories of Lehi. For somebody that's wanting to know about Lehi, any stories stand out that just about Lehi, the city of Lehi, that you would want to share?
I can't think of anything rough, that makes us extraordinary. Just the beginnings of Lehi is one of I think is pretty.
So for somebody that doesn't know about the beginnings of Lehi, what would that be?
It started out with just several settlements, and then Dry Creek settlement down by the rodeo grounds is where the first organized part of Lehi was. And then in 1854, they had some troubles with Native Americans. Brigham Young told David Evans to build a fort. This is actually the third fort, but he built a fort kind of where downtown Lehi is, laid out the streets and things like that. That grew up to become Lehi, but Lehi is unique in that in 1872, I think it was, the railroad came in. And I actually had two business districts, Main Street and State Street. And the State Street was because of the railroad. Most towns only have the one business district. But that kind of makes Lehi stand out a little bit. And then with the growth from the sugar factory and all those type of things, that Lehi, now it's with the Micron moved in the 90s, and just grow.
And that's where we're in now, right?
That's where we're in now.
All this growth and stuff. And one thing I've noticed too, Lehi does seem to have a very strong community, which I think is unique, and maybe it's because it's so old, but a lot of the things that we do here, the rodeo, the Lehi Roundup Week, the different activities and stuff, it just seems like there's a lot of people that serve locally. What I've learned is there's so many good people here that are doing so many things. I wouldn't point to any one person. I really wouldn't. I just say, man, it's just a lot of busy bees doing a lot of good things, kind of thing. And so that's what's made, I think, Lehi great, is you have so many people doing so many things. It's not just one. I'm not sure it could be good if it was just one.
I think service is a huge part of Lehi. Always has been. I remember when I was a kid back in 83, I think it was, when the floods came. And Dry Creek was overflowing its banks and stuff, and we'd get calls at 10 o'clock at night. Oh, we need help sandbagging. And
Sure.
me and my brothers would head out and be up to our waist deep in water, throwing sandbags and stuff.
Sure.
We weren't the only ones there. I mean, there would be tons of people there.
Sure.
We showed up to church one time, and the bishop, after the sacrament, says, "All right, everybody go home, change, and meet at the rodeo grounds. We're filling sandbags."
Nice.
And we weren't the only ward that did that. Lots of wards did that.
Sure.
In 93, I think it was, there was a big snowstorm, the same type of thing. We were out shoveling people's roofs off after church, or after the sacrament. He just told everybody to go home and come back dressed for work, and we spent the rest of the day shoveling roofs.
Sure. Yeah.
That's normal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what makes up Lehi's history. And so a lot of people have been able to stay, and so then you pass those stories, or at least that attitude of service on, right? Yeah. And stuff. No, I love that.
And I agree with you. There is no one person that does it all. Everybody steps up. The community is very important to Lehi. That's why I love Lehi so much.
Yeah. No, I love it too. Good people. Lee, this has been great. I've enjoyed talking to you. Like I said, I share the same sentiment about stories and family history as you do. So I like what you're doing. So maybe use the AI thing. That'll help you.
I'd like to get into that. That sounds interesting.
I think it'll cut some of your time down. So again, you're still doing the main things you're putting together, but it cuts down on some of the busy work, which has been nice and stuff. But anyhow, great talking to you. Anything else before we part that we didn't cover that you'd want to cover?
I hope people take advantage of recording their stories and their ancestors and their family stories. You might think you're ordinary. I guarantee to your kids you're not.
Yeah.
To your grandkids you're definitely not.
Yeah.
You need to pass those stories down, your childhood and things like that, and that's something that I think is very vital.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story to tell, and please tell it. I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
I don't have any special education in writing and stuff, but you basically put your words down. AI is probably a good thing to make it look better.
Yeah, make it sound a little better, right?
Exactly.
Keep the core. You're not telling a lie.
Exactly.
But you can make it sound a little more eloquent, right?
Yeah, I write stories for the Facebook, but sometimes some of those stories get put on the Lehi Free Press.
Sure. Yeah.
Thankfully, Laura Bangeter goes through my stories and cleans them up and makes them more professional. So when they're printed, they look better.
Sure. That's nice of Laura.
Because that's something that's beyond my capability.
Sure. And again, that's a good example of a community, right? And people and helping.
Exactly.
We're all supposed to help each other. No, I love that. And to your point, so anybody that's listening, that if you know of anybody that is quote unquote ordinary, which I think that would be all of us. Mm-hmm. So send them on. We'd love to have them. Again, this podcast is not for you don't have to only be a mayor to come on.
I think it's awesome. Yeah.
It's for everyone.
You're doing a wonderful job here.
Hopefully I need to keep it coming. I'll keep doing the interviews if we keep getting the guests. But anyhow, thanks, Lee. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, no problem. My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Roots and Branches of Lehi. I hope today's story helped you feel a little more connected to the people who make up our community. Remember, every person here has a unique story, and together, we're what makes Lehi feel like home. If you know someone who would be a great fit for this podcast, please fill out the form in the show notes so we can reach out and schedule an interview. We'd love to hear from you. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Work Harding Home Mortgage Team and Play Harding Nightly Vacation Rentals, for supporting this show and helping us bring our community closer together. Until next time, keep growing those roots and reaching out to your branches. Take care.